Alright, so this is going to be part one of the build. It's going to have to be chopped up a little bit. I'm going to have to edit some stuff together just because there's way too much to do. I'm just going to try to build the chassis today, and if I can get that accomplished, I'll be like... First thing I'm going to do is just get the box out of the way, get all my parts and set them aside. I'm just going to pull everything out of the box, including the body and everything. I'll probably put some stuff back in a little bit later. But today we're going to be working with this box here. The instruction manual. Got an antenna tube in here. Some washers. I got some tools right here. Some hexes, some Phillips. We gotta get out the chassis, the crappy stock wheels and tires, the rear parts, the gear parts, the just all the different plastic parts, axle housing. It's not actually that in depth. It's not very complicated of a build. I've just never built one before, so right now we'll just get everything out of the box and put everything where I can manage it a little bit and bring up the instruction book. With this instruction book, we're gonna start out. I lied. There is black, white, and blue, so it's not all black and white. There's a little bit of blue. We're going to start out with the first part, which is setting up the motor mount and I guess the front differential. So I'm going to start getting all the parts out to do all that. Alright, so the first thing I want you to do is to get the pinion out of the bag and get this little collar, which took me forever to find. And you just slide it over the pinion and you stick your tool down in there, and then you slide the pinion all the way out and then you tighten it up. And that way it sets the distance to be just like perfect. So, and then after that, I guess you don't need that anymore. You gotta get the motor mount plate, which is plastic, and there's a little paper piece you have to put in here, and then you have to put the motor mount plate on. The next part it wants me to do is assemble the front differential, which you take these little gears and this little Y piece, and then you put the little gears on there. You have to put some grease. I've already put the grease on the gears and on the piece. It's pretty easy. I'm actually going to be locking it, and I'll show you how I do that in a second. Some awesome dude from the forums actually gave me that idea. So then you take your front gear and then one of these little spacer shims and one of the main drive gears, and then you put the spacer over that. I believe that's how it goes, hopefully. And then you put this whole thing in there like that, and then you take your Y piece that you just made with your little gears on it, your spider gears, and then you put it on there just like that. And then you want it to be where it'll spin nice and smooth. And then what you do is you get another gear like this one, and then, because I want this to be locked, what you do is you just stuff it right between two other gears. It fits like perfectly. So you have to kind of bounce it around to get it where it'll fit down there. But once it fits, it'll stay down there. Once you get that done, you'll see it's jammed in there, nice and flush with the rest of it. It just sits right up against the plastic piece. That locks it up so it won't be diffing out. I won't be doing any high speed, so I don't need any diff action of any kind. Then you put the top gear on. You see it just fits right nicely in there. And then you put this other washer. You actually have to put a little bit of grease on this. It says it wants a little bit of grease on there. And then you put the washer. I guess the grease is for the diff, but I'm going to put it there. Alright, after that, you have this top piece that just sits on there. There's 3 small screws that go in there, but I needed a little bit of tool to do that, so I bought this kit a little bit ago that has a bunch of screwdrivers for cell phone repair. And in the kit there's, oh look, a little hobby knife. I don't need that. There's like Phillips and pentalobe and little hexes, but I need this big flathead that they have in here. It's a big flathead and a big Phillips. You get them all set up in there, and then you just gotta tighten them down. It's pretty easy. I don't like to do a whole lot of on-camera stuff. It's just too time consuming. But I'll do this one for you. See, and then one last one. I don't know the quality of the kit, so I don't know if I could tell you if it's any good. But, and I got this little flathead I'll use to cinch them down a little better. Because these are Phillips / flatheads. It has a groove cut where you can use a flathead screw on it. The whole kit, I'll show you it again. It's a, I have no idea, but there's some model member stuff for you, so there's even a website. Alright, on to the next step. You need these two pieces. They're, I don't know, they're from G, I think. And then you need this long bar, which I had to hunt down everywhere to find it. 2 caps, which are also on G. And 2 bearings, a little bitty bearing and one that's like normal size. So what you do, you take this shaft, I think it tells me to grease it, so I'll put just a little bit of grease where the bearings are going to go. I reckon that's what that's for. Alright, and then you put the cap, the bearing on the one side, and then you put the cap on it, and then you slide this whole thing into here, and you want the bearing to seat in place just like that. See, the bearing is in there, and then this piece goes on here like that, and then the bearing slides around it like that where I put my grease, and then the other cap, so you see it spins very nicely. If I had bushings, it would not be as good. Then inside the chassis, there's an indentation right here. See, it's kind of hard to see. It just sits right perfectly inside the chassis. Somehow. Let's see. I'll figure it out. Alright, so I found the problem. This is just a little bit too long. It's because there's 2 steps that are right next to each other, and I was reading off the one. You need this one without the little, where you can see through it. It slides on the front there. That's because it's too long, and then it slides in there. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. So that's going to be your gear. And then this one sits on the front, but you got to put the bearings in there too, and then the drive shafts. So on to the next step. Alright, the next part, you have to get this long bar and that piece that I took off the other one. We're going to need 2 bearings. We're going to need, I already greased the shaft a little bit, and we're going to need this piece here. So we're going to take 2 normal bearings, like 5x11 or 10x11, I don't know, something like that. And then we're going to slide the bearing onto this piece, just like the other one. Only this is going somewhere else in the truck. So you end up with this, and well, it's getting the grease on that, so I guess it don't really spin that well. Oh, maybe I'm just holding it too tight. I don't know. Anyways, you put this piece down in there in the chassis. So let's see if we can make it stay. Oh, I got a little bit of flash. Alright, just remember that flashing on gears is not a good thing. Plastic gears just kind of suck anyways. So I got the flashing off. We're going to put it back in there. Look at that. Nice and smooth. Butter smooth. Then you take these bearings. Alright, so I had to take that one out and put this one in. You put this gear. You had to put 2 bearings down there. And then you put this gear on top of that. And then what I'm going to do right now is take my my drive shafts, or the out drives, and put them in there. Oh man, that's nice and smooth. And slide the out drives on to the shafts there to hold that in place, so you can see that it spins nice and free. So otherwise it might just be flopping around. I don't want that. And then we're going to take the piece that we just made, and we're going to put it back in there, so you can see everything is nice and smooth. There's nothing holding it in right now, but when there is, it'll be nice and smooth. Alright guys, just a note for me, what I like to do, is wherever the bearings are exposed, I'll put a little bit of like grease, like good grease. This type is red. That way it better protects the bearings and stuff from water, because the grease will fill up with the dirt and will not let the dirt pass through. So sometimes people say that grease is bad because it attracts dirt. It is in a lot of cases, but in the cases where it attracts the dirt away from the bearing, is pretty. Alright, so this pinion, there's two holes, or two sets of holes for the motor. One is for a 20 tooth and one is for a 16 tooth, and that just moves it away. I don't actually like this style of motor mount because these two pins just line it up, and you really can't fine tune your mesh or whatever. But this motor, you have to fold your wires over, something like that, and the motor sits down in there nice and neatly, and you can kind of just barely adjust the mesh, but once you put everything together, you're not going to really have a whole lot of control. Maybe that's why these things are so loud. Then you have this top plate that goes on over top of everything that will hopefully hold my mesh. There's a little pin here that holds the mesh, and hopefully it'll hold it in such a way that I don't have any problems. So then you put these 4 screws, 1, 2, I think one goes right here, I hope, 3, and then there's another one that goes down in this corner here. So I'll get that tightened up and I'll show you. Alright, so in one of the other steps, I had to make this piece, which is very interesting. You have a small bearing, and you have this piece right here. It has a flat spot that goes on the shaft that goes on this gear here, and then the bearing goes on the other side. So it's got a really small bearing on one side and it's got a bigger one on the other side, and it's got this flat spot. That's your out drive to the rear axle. And there's the front together. I actually I turned these by hand a little bit, and it does seem to be pretty smooth. This piece goes right underneath of the vehicle. You see underneath, right there. Then there's a shroud that goes over top. Then there's 2 screws that go, and this is for the out drive to the rear axle. It's like a big planetary system. I don't really like the whole planetary system, but it's alright. Okay, 1, 2. Alright, so now the out drive to the rear axle and the front axle is done. So the whole motor drivetrain stuff is done right now. So that's my to the rear axle, and these are of course for the front axle. Alright, this next part's going to be a little bit confusing, or a little bit tricky to do. You have to put this ball, the little hollow ball, and you have to put it right underneath the out drive, which is probably why they didn't tell me to put the out drives in yet. But I did anyways. And then you have to put this real long screw through the top and somehow tighten it up. You have to line. It's kind of tricky to line it up. Yeah, I may have to do this off camera. But anyways, then you have this part here that holds I guess the A-arm or something, maybe the A-arm, and then it has a little ball that goes in it too. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, so these little balls, I'm going to have to take my out drives out probably to put the arms on, but I'm not going to do that right now. But I had to put these up on the top here. There's just one screw in the top that holds them in, and these ones in the bottom, which were kind of a pain. I dropped the one and then I had to find it. But alright, well, this next part is going to require my GPM kit, my 2 aluminum these things. The problem I think I'm gonna have is the threads on this plastic is all coarse and this is fine thread, so I may have to dig around in my screw bin and see what I can come up with. 2 links, the upper links, and these the upper, well, yeah, they're like an arm, and then lower arms, and all these little rods and stuff to put all that together. This is going to take me a little bit, so I'll just do it off camera. I might do some of this on camera. There's already a couple of videos on this, but alright, with the GPM kit, you have to take these bearings that have this like bushing built on it, and you have to pop one on the top and one on the bottom. They are different, like one's a little thicker than the other one. I don't remember which way they go, but worst case scenario, I could just take them out. There's only like a millimeter or so of a difference, so I need to figure out which one goes where. I watched a video one time of how that goes. I just don't remember. This piece goes through the top and slides nice and neat. That's your for your steering. I believe it'll actually go this way somehow. And then maybe the thick one goes on top. But alright, here's what I found. The thick one goes on the bottom. There actually is a little bit different of the size of the hole, and the top one's a little bit bigger, and they'll only go in one way. This piece for the steering that goes in there, there's a cutout right here in the wheel well that will allow it to slide smoothly. It's very smooth. Alright, so I had to put little washers under these little balls here because the studs were just a little bit too long, and they were coming in contact with my GPM center bar here. But that's what it looks like from it's so smooth. It's very smooth. There's little to no play in it too, so but this moves nice and smooth up here, and that's how it moves the steering down below. I'm gonna use these if they will fit. If they're long enough, I'll use these as my steering arms, but I'll have to put the rest together to see if these will fit long enough, because those actually come off I don't know, some other Tamiya kit. But now I need to do all the rest of this stuff right here, so I'll do that right now. Alright, so I skipped ahead a little bit. I got the GPM steering in, as you saw. I got these links. My links that I've got are actually not going to work because they're too small. So if any of my fellow Ultimate RC members would like these are, I believe they go to a TT or a TL, the little bitty on-road car. That's what these go for. They're blue aluminum. If you like them, just shoot me a PM and I'll get them out to you. I got my aluminum pieces on here. They went on just fine, no problems. There's not a lot of travel though. The whole bottom piece, there's like 5 screws that holds this on. This whole thing sets up. So I think I'm almost about ready for shocks on this, but I still have to put the rest of the front end together, which I'm going to do. Alright, so it's time to do the front drive shafts. You have little dog bones, you have the stub axle, you have these aluminum. I have the aluminum ones, the stock ones are over there. I'm not going to use the stock ones. You have a big bearing that goes on the inside, something like that, and then you have a slightly larger than regular bearing for the outside. Man, they just slide right in there, don't they? Kind of worried about that. And then the stub axle slides inside of there like that, and these bearings are falling out. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I'll probably put a little piece of something in there to stop it from popping out my dog bone if it's a problem, and I'll be putting these on as well. These are my aluminum wheel hexes. So I'll dump out my parts nice and neatly right here. I'm just going to do one right now. So I need, hopefully that's a 1.5, because if it's smaller I don't have it. Oh, it is 1.5. So you take this, there's like a little hole where the grub screw goes in. So you fit it in there. And then on the stub axle, there's a hole where you'll put in the drive pin in there, and you'll center up the drive pin, and then you put on the hex adapter like so, and then you tighten it up like that. Alright, so I put a piece of fuel tubing in the out drive, and now I need to add the what do you call this thing? I don't even know what it is. This thing here. You put in the drive shaft, the dog bone, and then you have to line up the dog bone. Oh, it all fell apart. Of course, it did. Anyways, you line up the dog bone with the stub axle, and it's all got to fit in this small little spot. So you just twist it until it falls in place. There it is. Sorry, I wasn't able to do that on camera. And then you have these holes. Luckily, the stock screws will thread into the aluminum aftermarket piece. So that's a good thing. That's always a good thing. I put a little bit of thread locker on them, and alright, so I put the one side together. This really bothers me though. Check out how much play this thing has. It just has, I'll push this all the way down. Just all this. See where the screw head comes down and goes up on the top? I'm gonna need to get some kind of washers to either put in the middle there or put on the outside. I'll probably have to put one on the middle, one on the outside. But that's just like ridiculous. Alright, on to the next. Alright, so the front end is done minus the shocks. I really don't like how much play there's just like ridiculous amount of play. I guess that's to be expected though of this little truck. I have to watch some video. There's a couple of videos. Mario RC has a couple of videos on how to increase your steering. I'll have to try those out, but I don't know how they'll work with my aluminum pieces. But you can see the steering. Let's see, here it is. It doesn't really go all that far. I'm sure it'll be okay with these huge tires, these big wheels and tires that I'm going to be putting on there. They don't really need to turn all that far anyways, I don't guess, but kind of gives you an idea of how wide it's going to be. Let me put another one on there. Ta-da! Yeah, so that's sort of what it'll look like. You see everything rolls nice and free, full drive, locked in, works good. So I'll have to see what I can do about getting a little longer throw maybe, and getting some of that slop taken out of the steering. I'm gonna see what the instruction book says next. I think it says the rear axle. Yeah. So front axle done. We have to put on these things for the rear axles to where it'll hold. I believe those are for the shocks, and then we have to put the rear axle together. So. Alright, one thing to kind of note, this has a top and a bottom piece for the axle versus a lot of RCs have a front and a back piece. It's a little bit different. Also, back here, there's two spots to hook up your shock mounts. And I believe that is because they have different wheelbases, and in this case it'll be the shortest wheelbase. So you put this in the closest one to the front, like so, and then you get a screw. So you put it, because they have some bodies have a longer wheelbase than others, and this is the little Jeep body, which is a very short wheelbase compared to others. So let me line this up a little bit better. Yeah, I use a drill. So what? Let's see. As long as it's lined.